gonna try to wear this necklace that says my name, but my nails are too long to do the little clasps. Today I'm going to talk about all the books I read in February 2023. It was a pretty good reading month. I tended to read a lot of shorter books this month, some graphic novels. The last video I made, I was sitting down in a little stool that I have, but this time I'm going to practice standing. I'm probably going to be swaying a lot like a middle schooler at a choir concert. Let's just get into the books. Maybe that will help. I want to mention two books that I spent a lot of time reading this month, but I haven't actually been able to finish. First, I have a book that I'm doing as a buddy read with my sister, and that is Dune by Frank Herbert. This is a sci-fi pretty classic if you haven't heard of it. I would be surprised. With the index and everything, it's almost 700 pages. I've heard that it's very boring, and I've actually been really enjoying it so far, a lot more than I expected. I really like the writing style, so that's definitely a big part of why I'm enjoying this. I'm only 99 pages in. I tend to read a lot quicker than my sister, so we've decided to pause every 100 pages to let the other person catch up, which usually will probably be me reading first. So right now I'm at 99 pages and I can't go on yet until she gets here also, so I'm excited to see what else happens, but I'm not sure what month I'll finish this, but that is my impression so far. And then I have the longest book I have ever attempted to read, the longest book even on my reading list to ever read. So once I finish this, it'll all be easier from there. And so I have been reading Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. This is a story I'm very familiar with from the Broadway musical. My first introduction to this story was actually the 2012 film adaptation of the story, and I just absolutely loved it. I have seen the show live now as well, and I just really love the story. And ever since I saw the movie in 2012, I've been wanting to read this, but I've been very intimidated by it. It is 1,463 pages, and I've made a lot of good progress this month. I started it right before the new year, so my goal is definitely to finish this within the next few months, but I am trying to read 10 pages a day. Some days I don't succeed in that, other days I do better. There have been times when I've read 20 pages. So my biggest tip for reading something that's really intimidating to you is start in really small increments, like 10 pages a day. I have even done 5 pages a day before for a book that wasn't very long, but it was very dry. It kind of felt like reading a textbook. So this doesn't feel like that. There are times that are a lot more engaging than others, and so the times when I've been able to read 20 pages are focused more on the actual story of Jean Valjean and his life, and that's what's most interesting to me. There were 60 pages talking about the Battle of Waterloo, which I know a lot more about than I ever expected to. I'm not really much of a history person. I enjoy learning about history, but I find it hard to remember things. But after those 60 pages, I feel like I've learned some facts about the Battle of Waterloo. So right now I'm on page 510. I haven't read much in this over the past week or so, so I'm trying to get back into it, but I am at another boring part talking about this convent in quite a lot of detail. So I am eager to get back to the actual story. I am really loving it though so far. If you don't know what the story of Les Miserables is about, basically this man, Jean Valjean, is imprisoned for 20 years for stealing bread. Initially for stealing, and then he tries to run away a few times and gets more time added on. He's released from prison, realizes that no one is going to take a chance on him to give him a job or housing. Even the day he gets out of prison, he can't even find an inn to stay at because of the discrimination against him. Essentially, he steals again to get back on his feet, and then decides to become a good person, and then a lot of things happen. So you can see I'm annotating this. This is my copy that I've had for 10 years. I found it used and I was like, yes, I'm gonna read this soon. 10 years later, I am reading it, but you know, it's intimidating to read something that's more than 1,000 pages, but it's going really well so far. I am really loving it. I wish some of the descriptions of certain things were shorter. but I still really can't see myself giving it less than 5 stars because of how impactful I find the main story to be. So we'll kind of see how the rest of it goes. I am more than a third of the way through the book now, so I should be done about the middle of the year, I think. I'll talk about it every month, how I'm kind of feeling about it thus far. I hope to make some faster progress as we get more into the book, but I'm honestly not sure because the beginning of the story is my favorite. So in the future, if I go to read it again, I may choose to read an abridged version of the story, but I'm not regretting this at all. So that's Les Mis. So this next book is a sequel to something I read back in November that I really enjoyed, a YA fantasy, and this one is called Monster of the Week by F.T. Lukens. The first book was called The Rules and Regulations of Mediating Myths and Magic. So it's a very long title. This one's a lot simpler. Unfortunately, I did not like this book nearly as much as the first one. I gave the first one 5 stars. Really fun to read. There was a little romance in it that actually ended up being important to the overall story, which I liked. This one, I just felt like I cared about these characters, so I wanted to see what they were going to do next, and I enjoyed that I was able to do that, but it also didn't seem like a very necessary story. It was nice. It was a fun time. The first book was about a teen boy who needs to get a job to help pay for college, and he ends up working for a mediary between the supernatural world and the known world. In the first book, it's all about how the supernatural world is kind of behaving strangely, and they're trying to figure out why that is. This one is set after the resolution of the first book, and it is about a paranormal focused TV show that comes to town and is trying to investigate the events that happened in the first book. The story was a little bit less interesting to me, but like I said, it was still fun to read overall. Next, I have something else of a classic, you know. Everyone's heard of this. It is Westward Woe by Steve Holland. This is a Kenan and Kel book, of course. I just have this. I've been trying to read books that I own. I don't really like having a bunch of books that I haven't read. I'm not someone who really goes and buys a book without having read it first, unless I see it for a really good deal at a thrift store or something. But this book I have had since I was a kid. I don't actually know the origins of it. I see that it was published in 1999 when I was 4 years old, so I certainly don't think that I went and bought this book new by myself. I think probably either my sister bought it, she is 6 years older, so that kind of would have made sense, or I may have bought it at a thrift store or something when I was a little older. I don't remember. There's a little like sticker that says deals on it here, so that tells me maybe it was a thrift store of some kind, but I don't really know. I loved the TV series Kenan and Kel as a kid. I still watch it. I think that a lot of it holds up really well. Others, you know, you can tell it's the late 90s. If you don't know Kenan and Kel, basically every episode of the series, and I'm assuming every book in the book series, follows a formula of Kenan being this very ambitious teenage boy who is always having different schemes, usually to either get rich or get a girl he likes or something, and then Kel is his best friend and always finds a way to mess it up somehow. So this was a little bit of a Western theme for Kenan and Kel. Essentially, I mean, it's very short. It was enjoyable. I didn't want to give it a star rating on Goodreads because I think it had something like 10 ratings, and I know that my rating would bring it down. It right now has a 4.8 and I'd probably give it like a 3 star, somewhere around there, 3.5. It was like enjoyable, but it wasn't very complex. The writing was very cringy at times. It was very reminiscent of the actual TV show, the writing. Like it just felt like you were watching an episode, which was fun, but also not really what you want in a book necessarily. But it seemed at times like a middle grade student was writing this book, just with the descriptions of things. It describes Kenan's eyes as friendly on multiple occasions, where it's not really relevant. It's just like that's his descriptor of his eyes. And it was really interesting to read a Kenan and Kel episode in form of a book. There are some other books, so it has listed some other Keenan and Kel books as well as some other Nickelodeon in general. There are 2 Good Burger books and an All That book, so I'm really curious to see what the All That book is about, because if you know All That, it's not really a show with a story. So I regret to inform you that this little read books, earn points, get stuff is no longer valid. There are all kinds of things that you can get. Unfortunately, it has expired as of January 31st, 2000. So I missed my chance a little bit on that. I may be tempted to buy the other books in this series. I think it would be kind of a fun thing to collect. But that is Westward Woe by Steve Holland. Next, I read a novella that was on my list for a while, and I have this collection, Collected Novellas by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And in this collection are Leaf Storm, No One Writes to the Colonel, and Chronicle of a Death Foretold. I found this at a thrift store, and I had been wanting to read some of his books for a while. I read Chronicle of a Death Foretold, which was a pretty short, I think it was like 50 pages. I would give it like around 3 stars. I thought it was good. It wasn't great. It was written very well. So next I have a graphic novel, which I really wasn't liking that much at first, but as I got into it, I started liking it more and more. And that is Thieves by Lucy Bryan. This is a story about 2 teenagers who steal things. I don't want to give too much of it away because that'll give away like the whole story as to why they're stealing and what they're stealing and everything. But it was good. I don't really like the faces in this one, but I like some of the colors. I think the use of color was really nice. I liked the purple. They used that in like dark scenes. Some of the general illustrations are just really nice. There are a lot of party scenes, and there are a lot of characters in general. You see several times glimpses of this poster in the main character's bedroom, which is a poster for In the Mood for Love, a film that I actually just watched it earlier this year, and I really, really liked it. It is just so stylistic and beautiful, and that's a whole nother topic. The character talking to a friend, you can see the poster in the background there. So next I have continued with the Spy Family series. This is the only one that I own. I actually found it at a good price, so I just went ahead and bought it before I read the rest of them, just because I knew from watching the anime that I really liked the story. So I have volume 8 here. I've pre-ordered volume 9 for when it comes out in English, so I can have that to look forward to. I think will be sometime in March, so I'm excited about that. Since I own this copy, was able to tab a few funny moments. Here's Lloyd in kind of a ridiculous outfit because he is trying to seem more fun to Anya. Spy Family as a series is all about a man named Lloyd who is a spy who, in order to succeed in his next mission, he has to have a wife and a daughter, and so he adopts a girl from an orphanage who we find out is a telepath. He also finds a wife who we find out is an assassin, and so this little girl who's a telepath knows the identities of both her adopted father and adopted mother. Both parents don't know about each other. They also don't know about the girl who's a telepath, so it makes for some really funny situations. There are some more high stakes situations with the action. There was a lot of action in this volume. And this volume took place entirely on a cruise ship. Of the 8, it's in the lower half of the 8 for sure, but it's still really enjoyable every time. You just really get to know the characters and care a lot about the characters, and it's just really fun to read what happens with them. Next, I have another graphic novel. One of my sister's favorite TV shows is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I had never watched it before, so we decided to watch it together. It did take a very long time. We live about an hour drive away from each other, and this show is 7 seasons long, so we did not finish this show until January 2023, and we started it in 2020. It feels great to finally be done with it. I did decide to go ahead and read the first volume of season 8 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is only in graphic novel form or comic form. Watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, every episode is different as to how good it is. There are some episodes that are very just filler-ish and just not very interesting. Other episodes that are just amazing. So this was just one of those. It felt like an episode that just wasn't as good as some of the other ones. But I am definitely looking forward to reading more of this. I don't really want to support Joss Whedon or anything that he does anymore. I do plan to read these. I don't know how much I'll really talk about them. I don't really want to support someone who abused cast members on the show they were working on. So next I have a middle grade sequel to a book that I read just in January that I really enjoyed. And so this month I read Amari and the Great Game by B.B. Alston. In January, I read the first book, which is called Amari and the Night Brothers. I liked both books about the same amount. I thought they were both really charming. I liked the messages of both of them. I'm definitely curious to see what happens next in the series. The first book is about this girl who... Come on. This girl, Amari, begins going to a supernatural school after her older brother has been missing. He has been involved in the supernatural world as well, and she's basically trying to figure out what happened to him. So this book directly follows the events of the first book, so I don't want to talk too much about what this one is about. I will be buying both books in this series and eventually the new book once it's released. This one was just released in 2022, so I think it'll probably be a while. Next one I read wasn't really my favorite, probably my least favorite of the month. Yeah, definitely my least favorite of the month. I decided to read this book only because I found it for 20 cents at one of the Goodwill bins where you buy things based on their weight. So I have The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. This is a really nice edition, really nice cover. I think it feels nice. I like the little slight amount of embossing. I really care about what goes into a cover, but especially the way it feels in my hands. It's about this boy who essentially has a dream, a real dream, and then decides to seek out this treasure that he found in his dream, or that he dreamed about existing or something. And so he goes on a journey to find this treasure. I've read reviews about this book before that really say what I've been thinking about it, which is just kind of that the writing feels like every line is trying to be, I don't know, Pinterest quote or Tumblr quote, just those kinds of things. There's actually a quote on the back of this, which the back is really pretty too, but it says, "To realize one's destiny is a person's only obligation." And I just think that that's an example of like a kind of silly line that's supposed to be inspiring, but it really is just like, well, that's not really true for most people. So like, it's nice to think about. It seemed very spiritual or biblical a lot of the time. I don't really have as much of an appreciation for stories like this, but I know a lot of people really love this, or it's really impacted them. I probably will give this away at some point. I might give it to my dad. 171 pages, and I had to do the 10-page a day to get to the end because it was so not appealing for me to read it. And then the last book I read in February 2023 was one I really enjoyed. It is a romance with a little bit of fantasy mixed in. Exit West. How do I pronounce that? Where's my phone? You know what song I have stuck in my head right now? Zoot Suit Riot. Do you know that song? Zoot Suit Riot.
Mohsin Hamid.
Mohsin Hamid. Okay, so I was really wrong. Exit West by Mohsin Hamid. It's definitely one of my favorites. I really like romance with kind of high stakes situations, and that's kind of what we got here. I liked the writing in it. I don't know that I really liked the ending. I felt like the fantasy element was a little bit unnecessary at times. It was just kind of a convenient way to get the characters from one place to another quickly, but that didn't bother me too much. I really liked the characters. I thought they felt very real. I thought the romance felt very real. I really would recommend this. Those are all the books I read in February 2023. I read 9 books total. I usually like to have 10 every month, but it's okay. I'm trying to be okay with that. I set my goal this year for 100 books, and I'm already at 24 books. So I mean, I'm making a lot of progress. Every time I set a goal, I try to push myself further and further for no reason. So I'm trying to read less over the upcoming months, although I do have a pretty stacked March TBR, which I will be making a video about shortly. I thank you for being here. This is my second video I've uploaded now. I've filmed a couple of other videos. They just didn't work out. I still don't really know how to end these. I will see you next time. Bye.